Arguably the best player of all time, LeBron James stated in an article in LA Times, Chris Paul is the best point guard in the NBA. That's high praise from one of the best players of all time. I've played and watched a lot of basketball, and I've always appreciated Chris Paul's game. Chris Paul is currently the best point guard in the NBA and has been for at least the past 5 years, for several reasons. We will talk about 3 main points. First, we will talk about Chris Paul's offense. Second, we will talk about his defense. And third, we're going to talk about his leadership. We will begin with Chris Paul's offense. Not only does Chris Paul's offense make him better, but also everyone else around him. Chris Paul's most impressive attribute is his passing and his lack of turnovers. In an article from thecauldron.com, Chris Paul has had the best assist to turnover ratio 3 out of the last 4 seasons, his best being his last season, with a ratio of 4.5 assists before committing a turnover, while averaging 10.7 assists per game. The closest ratio to his was 4.01, and that player was Steph Curry, and he was only averaging 4.3 assists per game. Chris Paul has also had the best career assist to turnover rate ratio of any player to ever play at 4.1. And if you follow basketball at all, you know that Chris Paul plays for the Los Angeles Clippers, and there is 2 other main scorers besides him, and that is Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan. And 45% of their points over the last 2 seasons have came from an assist from Chris Paul. That just shows that even their best players would struggle without having Chris Paul on the team. And a very underrated characteristic that Chris Paul possesses is his shooting. Chris Paul's mid-range shooting is vastly underrated. He shoots a 47% clip from mid-range, which is better than any other point guard in the league. And he takes his shots wisely and rarely shoots contested 3-point shots, which adds to his efficiency. And moving over to the other side of the court brings up my next point, Chris Paul's pestering defense. Chris Paul is not by any means a one-way player. He gets it done on both ends of the floor, which is why he's one of the best defenders in the league. His main quality is steals. He is the only current NBA player to average 13 assists and 3 steals per 100 possessions. And Chris Paul has been named to the All-Defensive Team 8 out of his 11 seasons. There's only been 3 other guards to be named to the All-Defensive Team 6 or more times, and none of them are current players. The next quality Chris Paul possesses is the most important because it cannot be taught, which is leadership. Chris Paul has been a natural-born leader on and off the court since his high school days and has translated nicely to the NBA. Chris Paul attended West Forth High School. At this high school, he claimed that he was never pressured to do any unlawful things, mainly because he has never been a follower, always been a leader. And the person he has to thank for him being a leader and for a lot of things that has made him into the person he is today is his grandfather. And unfortunately, his grandfather in his senior year was murdered at the age of 61, which was really hard for Chris Paul because this was his main role model and who he looked up to the most. So whenever his grandfather passed away, he was struggling to get back on the court, and he just wanted to stay home and grieve. But when deciding a way to honor him, his aunt brought up that he could score a point for every year that his grandfather lived. So his task was set that he was going to score 61 points in his next game. After talking to the coach said it was okay and he would let him play long enough so he could get the 61 points against the next team. And of course, he accomplished his goal and even missed some shots on purpose so he wouldn't surpass 61, and then checked himself out of the game after blowing out a team and scoring over 150 points altogether. But he did finish with exactly 61 points, which just shows his determination and his emotion for the game. And he always demanded the best out of himself and also his teammates, and he was willing to do whatever it takes to win. His high school coach, Coach Lattin, said he was the best leader he had ever coached, and he said he has definitely grown from his hardships. Even though many people underrate Paul because of his lack of postseason success, the stats don't lie. He represents everything there is to be a true point guard and has no weaknesses. He exemplifies what it means to be an all-around point guard by excelling in passing, shooting, defense, and leadership. So next time, when you think Steph Curry is the best point guard in the league, think again. Stats don't lie.